Hello? Yes, this is Red Hook 3-1. That's right, and this is Woody Klose.
And Virginia.
And we're transcribing, chatting as usual, directly from the nice, cozy red, white, and blue kitchen at Echo Valley Farm in Red Hook in Dutchess County, New York, our home. And today it looks like the kitchen of the old corral.
It looks like the Old West, and we really feel today like we're in a ranch house because our guest is a very, very famous man.
That's right, and we hope all of you children, particularly, and you mothers, have your children right there next to the radio because we have a very important and colorful guest with us today, sitting here at our kitchen table, and I'm sure that they will enjoy it as much as we here in our house have. It's been very exciting, hasn't it, Virginia?
It certainly has, and we're not going to keep him a secret any longer. He's Bronco Charlie Miller, the last living rider of the famous Pony Express. And he's sitting here with us today in his full regalia. He has his cowboy shirt on and a bandana and his long hair and big cowboy cuffs and a red sash around his waist, and he has spurs on his boots and a big gleam in his eye. And Bronco Charlie Miller is all set to tell you children and all you mothers and fathers and everybody who's with us in the kitchen today about his experience as the last rider of the Pony Express.
That's correct. Bronco Charlie, how old are you now?
I'm now 98 years and 5 months old.
98 years and 5 months old. You're awfully spry for a man of that age, believe me.
Well, I can't help it, can I?
I don't know. And before we're finished here, I'm certainly going to ask you the secret of your long life, but not right now. When did you start riding the Pony Express?
I started riding the Pony Express in 61.
How did it happen?
Well, the way it was, my father expected some mail from the East because he had cut cloth for Lord and Taylor in New York and Greenwich Village, the first man that cut cloth for Lord and Taylor, which had a little room in Greenwich Village, and now they've got a block of store in New York City on Broadway.
Yes, that's right. On Fifth Avenue it is now.
Fifth Avenue, yes.
That's right. And he was the first of the cloth cutters, was he?
Yes.
What did he make? Suits, men's suits, things like that?
I presume he did because I wasn't born then, and of course he married my mother in 47.
Yes.
And then when gold was discovered in 49, he left the Greenwich cutting room and got the bug to go west to be a miner.
And where were you born, Bronco Charlie?
I was born right under old Mount Shasta, where it towers up 14,280 feet high, right in an Indian camp, and the rest of my mother was such in a delicate condition she had to stop, and the other team the next morning went on down to Sacramento at the Sutter Mill.
Oh, yeah.
Where gold was discovered. And I was born in that covered wagon under two buffalo robes, one under me and one on top. And we stayed there 5 weeks until Mother got strong enough to move her baby and me down to Sacramento.
Mm-hmm. And in 1861, you started riding the Pony Express.
I did, yes.
How did that happen?
Well, my father took me up to the post office. That was a post office, and Mr. Harris, the agent there, of course, my father was getting letters from the East from Lord and Taylor and other friends.
They wanted him to come back, I guess.
Yep, and this rider that had expected in there with the mail to go back again to Placerville, he was killed upon the Sierra Nevada mountains by the Indians, and the horse came in all sweat with blood all over the saddle, an arrow sticking into his hip, and they knew the boy was dead, but the mail got through on the pony because the pony got away.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness. Now, facing that, how did you happen to get to be the one to ride the pony back on his return trip?
My father, Mr. Harris, told the men there, he said, I don't know what I'm going to do. We can't have a heavy man. And all the light men are working in the mines, and we got to have somebody to go back on his trip to take the mail to Placerville for the next boy. So my father said, my son can ride. He doesn't know this trail, but I guess your horses does, and he can ride. Mr. Harris looked at me and he said, yes, he looks like a boy that would go through, but he's pretty young and he's slim, never been on the trail, I don't know. Then an old miner stepped up, and he said, I saw this boy ride a bucking horse on J Street, and boy, he rode it.
Good.
And I think he could take the nail. Mr. Harris looked at me again and I said, Mr. Miller, well, we can't get no other rider. We'll have to take a chance. So he took me home, got me ready. Mother made a protest.
Naturally.
And I went back, and at 3 o'clock, I took that nail over the range, down through the canyon to Placerville, and got there the next morning at daylight. And while I was going through the canyon, the lions and the mountain lions and bear and the cougars were growling all along, and it scared me plumb to death. I got there, and I was scared, and I didn't know. I just hung on to the horse, and I had one river to swim, the Truckee River, and I had to swim that. And that didn't relieve me any, because that was dangerous. And so I got there in the morning, and the postmaster came out and he said, what, this a new boy? I said, yes, the other boy, I don't know what become of him, but the horse came in, he didn't. Well, he said, we'll take you to bed.
Mm-hmm.
They took me to a room, put me to bed. After they took me to the restaurant, for the Chinese were doing the cooking in that town, and they took me to the restaurant, got me something to eat, and then put me to bed. And I slept the next night and went back again. But I wasn't scared now, because I went through it, and I felt pretty good. So I got home laughing, having a good time.
Well, Bronco Charlie, that's the most exciting story of a little boy that I have ever heard. I'd like to ask you, what were the requirements for the riders of the Pony Express?
You have to take an oath. The Judge Majors, who was the son of Alexander Majors that owned the Pony Express, he examined you. And you had to swear to this oath. You could not drink, you could not smoke, you could not fight, you could not quarrel, but you'd do your duty and the best you could to take the mail through. Yes, sir.
Well, that's very fine, and a fine oath even today, don't you think?
Well, I should say, and I'd like to know if that's the thing that started you, all those fine promises. Did they start you on your long route to being such an old man as you are and so healthy?
No, I've lived right. I never drank much. In my younger days, when I was with the boys, go to town to the hurdy houses and dance saloons, why, I used to take a drink or two. But I found out in breaking wild horses, which I became a Bronco buster and one of the best in the West, and they'll all tell you so, too, that knowed me, that I never drank, but I smoked ever since I was knee-high to a grasshopper.
Mm-hmm. Well, you met Abraham Lincoln at one time, too, didn't you?
I did, yes. In '63, after the Pony Express went back, I went back to Sacramento. There was a man who wanted to go to St. Louis and buy a lot of cattle and ship them out to Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with Mr. Chalice, and by the way, that man Chalice, the town of Chalice in Idaho is named after it.
Is that so? Will you tell us about Abraham Lincoln? How did you happen to meet him?
Yes, I will. Abraham Lincoln was coming from Illinois and going to Washington on his trip. And he was at the depot when the man got there with me. And I looked at him, and they said, that's President Lincoln. And he looked at me. He was just about to take the train for Washington when he came up and he said, little boy, where are you from? I told him. And I shook hands with him, and he said, well, you'll go places, and I have been since.
Oh, that's very good.
You were certainly right.
You were a member of the Texas Rangers, too,
Oh,
weren't
yes,
you,
I
Bronco
was a
Charlie?
Texas Ranger. After I was 27 years of age, I became a Texas Ranger from Amarillo and Los Angeles, Santa Angelo.
Mm-hmm.
It is on my shirt.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
yes,
There
of course
he's got
it is.
the...
San Angelo and Cristobal.
Yeah.
That's right, in Texas. You
Just-
saw Buffalo Bill, too, didn't you?
I traveled with Buffalo Bill all through Europe.
Did you meet
I
some
traveled
of-
with him for all through. We went to the Queen Jubilee in '87.
Queen Victoria?
Bronco Charlie Miller.
Mhm.
Oh, did you go to Queen Victoria?
Oh, yes.
Jubilee?
We showed to her because it was the 50th year of her reign.
Oh, yes.
What kind of a person was she, Bronco
She was
Charlie?
a short, stocky woman, very pleasant and very nice.
Did
She
you
was.
meet her?
Yes, I did. I shook hands with her.
Is that so? And
Yeah.
with whom else did you shake hands in Europe?
Well, I shook hands with the daughter
Uh-huh.
and the sons, which have become kings and queens since.
Yes.
And I belonged to Queen Mary's Regiment, which I had the The signal's right on my shoulders now, the 18th Hussars, Queen Mary's own regiment, the horse.
Yes, I
that's
see.
right.
And you fought with Teddy Roosevelt, too, didn't you?
I did. I was with him in the Spanish-American War.
What
But
were
I
you
didn't-
doing in that war?
I was breaking horses for him, for his cavalry.
Did you ever find a horse you couldn't break, Bronco?
Never in my life. I broke horses that they said could not be broken and could not be ridden. And I've ridden them and made them useful so women could ride them.
Well, what is the secret of that, Bronco Charlie?
Well, because I handled them right. I just wouldn't use no rough treatment. I didn't quote them and spur them. I petted them and gently got to them so that they had trust in me as I had with them.
Can you still ride a horse?
Yes, sir.
Would you
I
like
rode
to-
a horse last summer.
You did?
You did, really?
I was up to a dude ranch up at the Loon Lake above our place in Glens Falls, up in the Adirondacks. And a Frenchman, whose father used to shoe my horses for me running a dude ranch. Got married and got a nice wife and is running a nice dude ranch up there at Loon Lake. And his name is Latour. And he invited me up as a guest to his place to stay a week or two, and I went. So one day the riders from Boston and different places working there on the dude ranch, that is as guests, paying their way, they said, can this man ride yet at his age he is? And I heard it. I said, you bet your life I can. I said, get me a horse, Mr. Latour. And he brought me a horse from Montana that was sign-necked, an old cow pony that would turn on a 2-cent piece. And I said, I'll show him how I can ride. They put a saddle on. My saddle wasn't there. I got on that horse, and I run him up the road, turned him around and slipped him on his hind legs and came back and said, whoopee!
Good enough.
I wish our listeners could see Bronco Charlie making all the gestures. I feel
think
like
so,
he's
too.
riding a horse.
I think we ought to give you a little exercise on our pony, Rusty, after we finish here, don't you
All
think?
right, I'd like to ride him.
Do you think, Bronco Charlie, that little boys and girls learning to ride should learn on a saddle first or bareback?
Oh, and I never should go on bareback. When I was taken by the Indians and their spoises away from home, I never rode a horse. I was only 8 years of age. And they came up with a little spotted horse in front of me in our place. My mother was down the creek washing. And I remember looking at them Indians coming and that little pony running loose, following the whole herd with a little papoose girl and a little papoose boy, his son, the chief, and a man that looked after the children that belonged to the tribe. And the Indian came up to me as I stood there, and I was just looking with all my might at that little spotted horse. And he said, little boy like pony? I said, yes, I like little pony. I never rode one. Well, he said, little boy like Indian and like pony, he can have pony. They put me on a little horse, loose, without a bridle or anything, and I was bareback, but they kept on each side of me so as I wouldn't fall off.
Oh, yeah.
And they took me to their place way up in under the Siskiyou Mountain where I was born.
Is that
My
so? That's very
goodness.
nice.
Isn't
Now,
that
before
wonderful?
we leave the air, Bronco Charlie, may I ask you just one very important question? What is the secret of your 99 years of long life?
Well, I don't drink, I smoke, and I'm very careful of not eating and overloading my stomach.
I think that's important, don't
And
you?
I'd like to ask you how you managed to remember everything so beautifully.
Well, I tell you, I never had much book learned.
You think you can remember all of these things because you haven't had any book learning?
I do, yeah.
It helps, you
Very
mean.
good indeed. I'm sorry, everybody, but we've got to leave the air. This is Woody Klose.
And Virginia.
We've been transcribing, chatting directly from our kitchen at Echo Valley Farm.
And
we've
thank
had as
you.
our guest today Bronco Charlie Miller. Thank you very much, Bronco Charlie. It's nice to have you
Well,
with
I'm
us.
sure you're welcome.
Thank you very
Goodbye.
much. Goodbye.